We see an example every day when somebody's going to school. When they start going to school and they're looking for an apartment for the time of college. During the time of college, they're looking for an apartment. They're looking for a dormitory, a bedroom or something to sleep in, to spend some time in. They don't necessarily have to make it the most perfect opportunity. They don't try to find a dormitory over a lake or near the river or something that is perfect. And you go to their dorm rooms, those of us who have students or have seen students, you go to their dormitories, and their dormitories are kind of messy, things are not perfectly in place, and they do this because they know they're not going to be there forever. They do this because they know they're not going to be there for a long time. It's only a matter of time. They're only using these dorms, they're only sleeping in these dorms only until they finish school. So it's temporary, they don't care about it. Another example, somebody maybe goes out to buy a car and he knows it's not going to be his last car. He just wants a car temporarily for a couple of months until he starts getting paid from his new job, and then he buys a newer car. So we don't focus on making this car 100% perfect. They don't focus on selecting a perfect car. This is part of the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with, and part of the wisdom. That when we realize something is temporary, we don't have to work so hard to make it perfect. Yet, we're supposed to focus on the something that is much longer lasting. We focus on the thing that is much longer lasting. But subhanAllah, when it comes to this life in general, so many people have already considered this life to be eternal. So they try to perfect this life as much as they can. Even though everyone realizes that this life with everything in it is only temporary. It's only a matter of time. And we all leave this life behind and we move to the next stop. If you believe Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to confer His blessings on the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So a lot of brothers and sisters, a lot of people in general, except the ones that are guided, they think that this life is eternal, and it's not. It is only a matter of time and this life will be over. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam has taught us this. And every prophet and every messenger that God Almighty has sent told us this, in order for us to prepare ourselves for what's coming. From the hadith collected by Al-Imam al-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah. Some of the hadith of Uthman ibn Affan, the third Khalifa in Islam, the third Caliph, the most modest man in this ummah. The most modest man in this ummah. If you want to learn modesty, read the seerah of Uthman ibn Affan. If you want to learn modesty, you want to learn how to be modest before God Almighty, read the story and the life and the biography of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. Whenever he sat by the grave or he stood by the grave, he used to cry very, very, very hard until his beard becomes all wet with tears. So they would ask him, O companion of the messenger, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, when we talk to you about the hereafter, sometimes you have a stronger heart, but when you're reminded of the grave, you start crying and you can't handle yourself. He goes, I heard Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the grave is the first stop in the hereafter. The grave is the first stop in the hereafter. So if the person in the grave, the deceased, survives the fitna of the grave, if he survives the trial of the grave, then whatever comes after the grave is much easier. But if the person of the servant does not survive what happens in the grave, then what comes after this is even worse. He says, you believe life in the hereafter, you believe in the unseen, say Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. Don't listen to people who say you only live once, do whatever you want to do, enjoy this life, you only live once. No, you don't only live once. You do not only live once. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that life had 3 stages. This life is the first stage, and it's a material life. You don't see your soul. You don't see somebody else's soul. If you punch somebody in their face, you don't hurt their soul. This life is all about the bodies. Everything is material. The life of the grave is all about the spirit. It's all about the soul. Everything is spiritual. And the life in the hereafter, after resurrection, includes both forms of life, the material and the spiritual, and that is exactly why it's the eternal one, the one that we should be working for. But anyways, in the grave, the Prophet ﷺ taught us to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shield us from the trials of the grave and the punishment of the grave. And the Prophet ﷺ says, this is a hadith that was narrated by the 6 biggest collectors of hadith. Al-Bukhari wa Muslim, they narrated part of the hadith. Ibn Majah, Al-Nasa'i, and Al-Imam Ahmad, all of them narrated the entire hadith. And this is hadith from one of the companions named Al-Bara ibn Azib, radiyallahu anhu. He said, we went out with the Prophet ﷺ in the funeral of somebody from the Ansar. And he was not even buried yet. He was not put in the grave yet. So the Prophet ﷺ sat very, very, very calm, and everybody sat very quiet in respect to the deceased person, in respect to the hereafter. They sat very quietly, and the Prophet ﷺ said to them, ask Allah to shield you from the fitna of the grave. Ask Allah to shield you from the fitna, from the punishment in the grave. Ask Allah to shield you from the punishment in the grave. And he said that 3 times. And then he says, alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that the good man, when they're about to die, that they start seeing angels. When the good man is about to die, you start seeing angels. They're about to leave this life and go into the next life, the next stop, the stop of the grave. He says when the good man is about to die like this, they start seeing angels with very bright, beautiful faces. كَأَنَّ وُجُوهُهُمُ الشَّمْسِ, as if their faces are like the sun, like a very lit planet. They come to him, and then the angel of death comes and commands the soul out of the body, and it comes out of the body very smooth. It's not a painful death. It's a very, very smooth transition. So the angels of mercy do not leave the soul in the hands of the angel of death for as much as a blink of an eye. And they take that soul, and they wrap that soul into clothes and garments that comes from heaven. And the soul starts smelling. If any of us has participated in the washing or in the burial of somebody who's very religious and very pious, they smell very good. These deceased people, they smell very good. The Prophet ﷺ says because their souls are now being wrapped in garments from heaven, and it smells like the most beautiful scent of musk that has ever been produced to this earth. And then the angels wrap it in these garments. The angels wrap it in these garments from heaven, and it has a beautiful scent, and they start ascending it to heaven. And every time it ascends to heaven, some collection, some group of angels, they start asking, to whom belongs this beautiful soul? To whom belongs this righteous soul? And they start referring to that person with the most beautiful names that they've been called in this life, to make them happy, to welcome them, to tell them, come on, enter heaven with the blessing of Allah. Enter heaven with the pleasure of Allah. Enter heaven with satisfaction from your Lord. And it goes up all the way to the 7th heaven with all the welcoming and all the love of the hereafter and the people of the hereafter, or the angels. It comes all the way up, it ascends all the way up, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the angels to take it back down generously and kindly, with graciousness, and to take it down to the grave. Because now the person is going to be asked. And when it comes down, when that soul comes down, a companion comes to this person in the grave, a spiritual life. Everything in this life is very spiritual. A companion comes, and he has a beautiful face, looks very beautiful, looks very good looking. So the deceased person says, who are you? You have a face that can only bring good news. Who are you? He goes, I am your good deeds. أنا عملك الصالح. I am your good deeds. and today is the day that you've been promised. And then a voice calls from heaven, spread for this deceased man part of the garden of heaven. See him, his reward in heaven, so he can continue looking at it until the day of resurrection. And when this deceased man sees this, he starts praying to God in his grave, "Oh Allah, make the hereafter happen fast. Oh Allah, make the hereafter happen fast." As far as the other example, when a bad person is deceased, he sees some of the scariest and most terrifying and the harshest angels. When his soul comes out, it comes out in a very painful manner. And it comes out in the hands of the angel of death. And then the angels of torture, the angels of punishment, they do not leave it in the hands of the angel of death for a blink of an eye. They take it and they wrap it into garments that are coming from the fire of hell with all the burning and all the torture that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises in the Quran and the fire of hell. They start getting a taste of it before even the day of judgment. And then it has one of the worst scents that anybody can ever smell, a scent of a deceased person. And then as they ascend to heaven, the gates of heaven lock in their face, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, drop this soul ungenerously, unkindly back to earth, because that's where they're going to be resurrected from. And when it comes back to the grave, this person sees the companion of the grave, and he's very ugly, has a very dark face and a dark, sinister look. So he says to him, "Who are you?" He goes to him, "I am your bad deeds. I am your disobedience of Allah. I am your arrogance. I'm your false pride. I'm your ungratefulness to God. I am all that money that you stole. I am the hijab that you took off. I am the alcohol that you used to drink. I am the people that you used to curse. I am your bad deeds. I am the bad deeds that you've been building all this life, and this is the day that you've been promised." So a voice calls from heaven, "Open a door to this man's grave from the fire of hell, so he can continue to see it and experience it until the day of judgment." And this deceased person starts making dua, "Rabbi la tuqim as-sa'a." Oh Allah, do not let the hereafter come. Do not let the day of judgment come. My dear brothers and sisters, I say this and I remind you to ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me and for yourselves and for our parents and for every Muslim, every believing man and woman, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ask His forgiveness and He will forgive you for any sins. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه وتوبوا إليه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.